What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. Today, we're going to be talking about the Arkham games. We're going to look at it from the perspective of game development. We're going to talk about, what audiences like in video games. And from my perspective as an indie developer, I wanted to go ahead and just start to give what I think are real conundrums from listening to the conversation, seeing the games from all sides, because I think it's actually very important that we actually talk about this. So one of my audience members said something that I thought was very interesting about the Arkham games. Now, as somebody who's played the Arkham games, who love the Arkham games, I enjoyed them like crazy. I thought this was very interesting. In my last video, we were talking about Endymion TV's critique of Gotham Knights, where in the middle of his Suicide Squad review or critique, he gave this critique about Gotham Knights and said a few things, and I said, okay, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to try my best to correct his inaccuracies because a lot of what he said is absolutely flawed in a sense. Now, this audience member of mine said this, and they said, I'm going to say something controversial. Arkham is the equivalent to junk food. Junk food is meant to taste great. Arkham is supposed to look good. Arkham has a very small button input to do something if you look at it. The only difference is that there's a lot of animations tied to just one press of a button, and it's visually appealing, and there's no ramp up in technical difficulty. I think the Russian Badger perfectly encapsulated the game with how it's played when ignoring how it looks. Gotham Knights requires greater deal of knowledge to play properly, and you need more player inputs to get the most out of it. I feel like I just made a case on how lazy a lot of gamers are. I still maintain that Gotham Knights has its issues. I do as well. Mostly the bike speed, the traversal, I think there are more issues than that, but has a lot of merits that get ignored because it's not junk food. I really do agree with this sentiment because right here, I can just basically take from my random gameplay of Arkham and I can show you exactly what he's saying. Let me show you what he's saying. So this is your first fight in Arkham Knight. When you get to that town square, right? Batman, a human being can zap insane radiuses. Did you see that? I hit the square button, bro, and I just literally cut a piece of the pie from where I am all the way to that enemy NPC. Look, I take this guy down, and as I hit square, I go all the way, bam, 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 boom. Like, I cannot necessarily say to myself, how am I achieving this other than the game is getting the job done for me? On the other hand, if I were playing, say, a game like Gotham Knights, I'd have a whole different perspective as to how that game is going to play because now I actually have to use my inputs. I got to take my time. I got to calculate. I got to make sure like I'm within range of enemy NPCs to do things, to be able to use my inputs in a way that is very timed so that I can achieve what is there. Not necessarily have the game just do it for me because it's free. So this particular paradigm comes into perspective. When are we going to get innovation in video games if all gamers actually want is basically the same thing? Because when I said this in my video, somebody, said to me, they said something about it. They said, you're a game developer and you are saying something along the lines of this. You see, this is not necessarily about, the mechanics that we're arguing back and forth about. They said it's about modern gaming. And I said, well, that is a whole different conversation. ELN Fisher said this, and I'm going to read their comment to you because I think this is very important that we look at this and, we separate it. He said, you're a game developer. There's no explaining this away. If a game does not sell, you don't work. I know that. The fact that you can even make a video like this shows you don't see the big picture. Oh, no. I disagree. It's about modern gaming. It's about games made for modern audiences. That is actually a big fat lie because this is actually a game that is made for people who want to truly learn the mechanics and the systems in the game rather than a game made for wider audiences. The developers of Arkham actually do mention that their combat system is actually easy for anybody to pick up. Whereas the developers with Gotham Knights, they require for you to be able to do the time strike attacks, which actually plays more like a fighting game than anything else. So you are conflating the fact that you don't like that system with another argument that you call modern gaming, which is games made for modern audiences. Yo, let me even tell you where I think this is very interesting. You see a game like Street Fighter 6, right? and a game like Tekken 8, which is insane because these two games are coming from Japanese developers, right? I noticed that in the iteration of Street Fighter 6 and Tekken 8, the developers went ahead to introduce simpler input mechanics so that they could appeal to broader audiences. So I fired up Street Fighter 6 for you guys to see exactly what it is that I'm talking about. Street Fighter 6 came with a classic, a modern control system. The modern control system reduces the input difficulty and challenge that it requires for you to be, to go ahead and deal with. For instance, I pick a character like Zangief, right? In order for me to play a character like Zangief, he's very hard on the input side because his grab is a 360. I got to do a 360 to be able to do his grab. So let's say I do this and then I grab the person, right? That's the classic Zangief control. It's basically his grab. 360, you do a punch, or you do a half 360, which for me to execute this, I do this with a 3-button control. And then, you have to do a kick. How do you even do this? There we go. It's been a while since I played, right? And if you look on the bottom left, you'll see the amount of inputs that I had to put in to be able to get this thing, right? That's what I had to do. And I'm using a controller, by the way, to pull off something like this. So at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, why would Street Fighter, a Japanese game that has always kind of prided itself on being able to, bring an authentic gaming experience, why would it go ahead and put something like the modern control system, where if I wanted to go ahead and do a lariat in a modern control, I literally hit one button? Did you see that? That's all I hit. I just hit one button and I can do the exact same thing. They are channeling their games now to modern audiences. The same thing that this person is basically accusing Gotham Knights for, you can all see that that's actually a false categorization of the game because that's not necessarily what the game is trying to do. Gotham Knights is actually the classic control of the conversation. Tekken 8 was the one that also kind of surprised me because Tekken 8 has what's called easy inputs. The developer is basically coming to add a system to the game that makes it seem like, oh, the input system is now, achievable for people who may not necessarily want to go through and, engage with, say, more of the game systems that are already there and learn a bunch of movesets and stuff. In fact, one of the biggest and interesting things about Tekken is I saw a lot of Mortal Kombat players actually look at the Tekken character and input list and stuff and say, man, I can't believe how many, moves you have to master to learn Tekken because its skill level is quite higher. So the conversation with Gotham Knights and a lot of these, games talking heads is that many of them could not be bothered at all to let go of the junk food, which is Arkham, in order for them to be able to say, let us learn another fight system that requires a little bit more other than the almost automated version of Arkham, where once I get to a crowd of bad guys, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I can basically use one button, bam. And then if at any rate I use a second button to counter or another button to just jump over them, I can prevail, I can build up a combo meter, and I can easily do takedowns afterwards. And, I'm Batman and I'm the Apex Predator and that's it. I enjoyed the Power Fantasy. They really make you look like a beast when it comes to fighting as a character. But ladies and gentlemen, this cannot be the only kind of game that we always root for. At the end of the day, looking at other possible fight systems and their difficulty levels makes gaming fun and makes it exciting because now you're able to try your hands on other things, learn some other things, master them, and feel that satisfaction from being able to do things that are a little harder. I think this game, Gotham Knights, exposed a lot of gamers. And from a game developer perspective, why would I want to make a difficult combat system in my game when I know many people are basically going to, pretty much go ahead and rag on it? I'll make a simple combat system that's pretty much going to be one that a lot of people can just basically, interact with rather than do anything that will be challenging. Because I can almost guarantee you a lot of these folk that criticize Gotham Knights, go and find their Sekiro gameplay. Go find their Elden Ring gameplay. Let's see how well they truly can play some games that would challenge them in terms of combat. You're not going to find it. Skill Up is one that I know is for sure a meme in his community where his community members were begging him for the longest time to play Sekiro. and he did not play it because they were like, hey, where's your Sekiro review? And I think the community was doing it on purpose to kind of troll him to say, let's see if you really can play, a lot of these games or whatnot. And so seeing him get upset with a game like that, talking about, enemy NPCs being, spongy and all that stuff, even when he played The Division, to me was a little funny because I was just thinking to myself, yeah, he's the one that didn't, give his community the Sekiro review that they were wanting. And I have to say, Sekiro is not an easy game to play. I kind of put the game down after a point. I was like, man, this is insane. This game, expecting for me to be, going ahead and doing all this stuff and mastering my parries. But if I sit there and actually learn, everybody's been telling me that it's very satisfying, it's very rewarding. And that's what I think video games can look like, rather than a lot of the complaining from, people that are talking heads on the internet, deceiving superhero games fans, wanting them to think that all they need to do is basically look for a game that can play in the generic sense that Arkham has always played in. Arkham was designed for the mass audience. So the comment about it's about modern gaming, are you talking about story? Are you talking about writing? Because Endymion's video that I actually was correcting in my video is about the technical aspects of the game. I wasn't even talking about the other aspects like the story and all, which I've criticized, and I'm not a big fan of in terms of how they executed those things. So again, it's nice to be very accurate over things, but at the end of the day, I see a lot of people pretty much conflating all kinds of problems together. And, as somebody who's looking as a game developer to go into the space, I'm trying my best to be able to understand exactly what fans want and not necessarily developer intentions. Because now no superhero games developer is going to try what Gotham Knights tried. But then what's going to happen is when they all make the exact same game, people are going to say the games are all generic at the end of the day, because there's not going to be any risk to reward ratio in terms of how these games are made. So it's a very interesting thing that I wanted to point out for everybody to think about. And I'm going to be making more videos about this stuff because it's really interesting at the end of the day. So let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching. Peace out.